Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Links Golf Club podcast, a conversation and today interview show about our wonderful club in the world of golf. I'm Gregory, your host, and as always, I'm joined by my friends Cooper and Chris. But folks, today we're very happy to introduce to the Links Golf Club community Robb Heineman. Robb, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, of course, guys. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're very excited. Very excited to see you. Cooper, Chris, anything on your mind? Anything to announce before we dive in?
Yeah, Robb, welcome on. We're excited. The community has heard a lot about you. Definitely looking forward to chat more. Of course, we've got a lot going on right now. When you're watching this, the U.S. course vote is about to go live. You can find all of the links in Clubhouse for that, as well as the links coin coming out. So, join the conversation in Discord, get your votes in. It's going to be a 1-week voting window, but we're really looking forward to all of the participation there.
Chris, what's on your mind? How you doing, buddy?
Doing good. A lot going on, as we all know. Excited to have Robb here. We were talking about Robb having you on the community call on Tuesday, and then you had a Sporting KC match, which then got moved to last night. Unfortunately, sounds like it didn't go your way last night, but I'm sure it was still a fun time.
It didn't, but we're playing Messi, so it's hard to have expectations that you're gonna win a lot against Messi. So it was fine, but it was freezing. It was 20 below zero, so tough night in multiple ways.
Rough. But you guys have had a lot of success with Sporting KC, so I'm sure we'll talk about some of that here today.
Absolutely.
Great.
All right, let's dive in. So in a previous episode, we took a deep dive into Hillcrest Country Club, the historic club in Kansas City, Missouri, where pending a yes vote from membership, we would be partnering with Robb Heineman. If you haven't checked that one out yet, you can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. But today, we're shifting gears to learn more about Robb himself and the history, progress, and vision for Hillcrest straight from the source. For those who may not know, Robb is a highly respected business leader in Kansas City. He's co-owner of Sporting KC, one of the most successful clubs in Major League Soccer. He played a key role in building Sporting KC's soccer-specific stadium and has been at the forefront of the club's groundbreaking membership model, a revolutionary concept that's reshaped how fans engage with professional sports organizations in the United States. He's known for his openness and direct connection with the supporters of the club. And as evidenced today, same thing with us. So Robb, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. On behalf of all the members, I'm really, really excited to get to know you better and also learn more about why you think Hillcrest is so special.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Look, I've had the opportunity over the course of the last kind of week to, spend a bunch of time on X and kind of seeing a bunch of member comments and feedback. And it's been great. I mean, that's sort of the stuff around sporting that I always loved, is kind of getting the voice of the people and seeing what's going on. So yeah, happy to talk about Hillcrest. And I think it's going to be such a killer course that I'm really excited to kind of have all you guys learn more.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, let's start with some icebreakers. We can all ease into this conversation, dip our toes into the pool here. We usually, whenever we have, conversation with new members, we always ask 2 questions. What's your favorite club in your golf bag and why? And then what's your favorite golf course you've ever played?
Yeah, sure. So, full disclosure, I'm not a wonderful golfer. I'm a 10-2 index. Probably don't get to play. I probably work on sort of like golf projects more than I do golf courses. So, but probably a 7-iron. I mean, I actually have 2 holes in 1 with the 7-iron. So that's been a good club to me. And I used to live out in California a number of years ago and had the opportunity to play Pebble Beach a bunch, and it's tough to beat Pebble Beach, just such an awesome surrounding. But yeah, it's had the opportunity to go over to Royal Dornoch last year and play a couple rounds over there. And that's a really, really special place as well. But I think the cool thing about all this is have the opportunity to go around and check out a bunch of cool courses and shoot really terrible rounds, but still enjoy, kind of the majesty of golf, which is fun.
I like how you said you're not a very good golfer, but you're a 10 index, which probably, puts you in the top at least 20% of golfers in the world. And
okay, well, look, I'm the worst. I'm the worst of the group of guys that I play with. So
that's
put it
fair.
that
It's
way.
all relative.
Yeah, it's all relative. Look at Chris is over there. Like, what are you?
I'm not. No, not at all. Not at all.
He's knocking my 10.
Trending in the right direction now.
Yeah. The issue with Chris is he's been doing a lot of speed training, so he's going to beat us all off the tee for sure. But if our short games can keep up, we'll still win some money off him, which is good.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, I gave a little bit of background on you in the intro, but we have a bunch of questions from Linkstyle members that we want to cover today. But where I'd like to start is just tell us more about yourself, maybe your history as a person, your history with Kansas City, your story growing up, and how did you eventually get into sports and business?
Yeah, so I grew up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Small place that not probably a lot of members have been. But coincidentally, my dad was actually involved in minor league sports really my whole life. My dad was an entrepreneur involved in a bunch of different things, and wound up also getting involved in what was called the CBA at the time, minor league basketball. Has evolved over time. We're now in the G League, and our business partner now is the Miami Heat. So we're basically the AAA kind of basketball team for the Miami Heat. And so, when we bought that, and I guess it was kind of the early 90s, so I had had the opportunity to sell sponsorships, sell tickets, sweep floors, do kind of everything around it. And, that's kind of how I fell in love with sports business. Was the cool thing about sports is it's really transparent, right? Like everybody knows exactly how everything's going, whether it's the play on the court or the field or wherever, and butts and seats on the business side. So just always have been drawn to it. And, grew up in Sioux Falls. I went to school at Notre Dame, lived in Chicago for a number of years, was a huge, kind of Bulls fan. That's when Michael Jordan was killing it. So got to see him live a ton, which is, was a great thrill. And moved out to California, as I mentioned, to San Francisco for a number of years, and then wound up coming back to Kansas City right around 2000. So I've been here now for 25 years almost, I guess. And love it here. It's a great place. I've got two kids, Catherine and Charlie. Catherine's at Northeastern in Boston, and Charlie's a senior here in Kansas City. And yeah, have been involved with sporting. We bought sporting in 2006 from Lamar Hunt. So I got to know Lamar Hunt, who, in my opinion, is probably the greatest American sports entrepreneur of all time. And, then partnering up with a great group of guys here in Kansas City. We bought the team, and I wound up kind of running it as CEO for, I guess, 12 years. And really everything we had to do, at that point, we were called the Kansas City Wizards. And we played in Arrowhead Stadium, which is, 80,000 seats, and we'd have about 2,500 people at our games. So it was a pretty bleak sort of thing. I mean, the funny story that I always tell about the Wizards is at that point, there were 12 teams in the league, and we were 13th in merchandise sales, meaning that like shirts that had like the league logo on it were selling more stuff than we were. So yeah, it was pretty bleak back then. But, got to meet Lamar, who's awesome, and kind of learn from him. And it was all about building sort of, sports specific assets. So, he said even the NFL, the behemoth that they are now, wasn't what it was when they were playing in dual sport stadiums of baseball, that, you got to have your own venues. And so, that's what we did, focused on that a lot. And then, kind of fan experience was a huge thing.
Yeah. Tell us more about like the member, just like the Sporting KC story. Yeah. I know I worked for the NBA for a bit in like their kind of team little consulting arm. And at that time, I would always hear Sporting KC references like being innovative, kind of out punching your weight just in terms of like kind of, not a huge market team, but, doing a great job in terms of revenue, fan experience, all that stuff. And to the point where it seems like the reputation precedes itself now, but like, sounds like you were coming from the basement, right? In terms of like, performance as a business or a team, right? So like, how did that happen? What did you guys do?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I grew soccer, I played soccer growing up. Probably wasn't my primary sport, football and basketball were kind of more my thing. So I knew a decent amount about soccer, but I hadn't really followed MLS. I kind of watched European soccer a little bit. I mean, before we bought the team, there were 5 of us that bought the team together. I was the only one that had been to a Wizards game, and I'd gone to one. So it's not like we were massive MLS fans. And, back then there was a bulletin board called Big Soccer. And so I just went on there kind of right after we bought the team, and I took a lot of crap for it, but basically put a post out there that said, please help me. I don't know what I'm doing. And we used that as a way to just get a bunch of feedback from fans around, different things that they'd like to see from us. And like an example would be, at that point, we didn't really have anybody that would travel, to our games on the road. And so we started a program pretty early on that if you kind of registered with us as a member, which, is really just a simple form, giving us some simple data, we would buy our tickets on the road. So it was cool. Like after not too long, for example, we'd be in Denver playing a game and there'd be like 800 fans there, which was awesome. We'd, tailgate with them and buy beer and all that sort of stuff. And so it was just a matter of, like I am just like a normal dude. I'm not a billionaire. I wasn't a billionaire then. And so it was more like, what can you do to try to have people feel more like they're a part of the brand, not just a fan of the brand. And I think we were able to do that pretty successfully, where people knew that we were like listening to what they were saying and we didn't do everything they said, right? But I mean, trying to do, and we tried a lot of stuff, and some of it like blew up. Like probably one of the more famous things was, we did a deal with the Livestrong Foundation. And so when we opened our stadium was called Livestrong Sporting Park. And we had kind of this reverse sponsorship thing where like a percentage of all our concessions would go to the Livestrong Foundation. Obviously the Lance thing blew up and he admitted that he was cheating and all that stuff. And so we, tore the name off the building and switched it. So, I mean, we tried a lot of stuff that I think was innovative at the time. Because we just wanted to be different. And what I think that did from a fan perspective is people gave us the benefit of the doubt. Like if we'd lose 2 or 3 games in a row, it wasn't like fire the coach, kill everybody, all that sort of thing. It was like, hey, these guys are trying, so and that's probably the same way that I look at Hillcrest. I mean, which I think Lynx is like a great representation of that. Like, I think this partnership is super innovative. I think Lynx is innovative. And so, it's something different. I mean, there's nothing like this relationship or this partnership in Kansas City, and not a lot in this region, frankly, for golf. So that's what we're trying to do, is just let people know that we're transparent. We'll listen. We're open. We're going to try things. They all won't work. They're not going to, everybody's not going to be happy about every decision we make.
Yeah. It is cool. And also just kind of funny or coincidental, just hearing you talk through the Sporting KC story and fan feedback and everything. Obviously we think a ton about that with, holding votes, getting feedback from members and all that stuff. But so maybe let's talk about Hillcrest more specifically then. So what's your personal history there? So I gather you were a member way back, when kind of in, I don't know, 2 or 3 or 4 cycles of ownership previous. Is that right? Tell us a little bit of the background there.
Yeah. So when I moved here from San Francisco, Hillcrest at that point was still a private club. And they had an offer, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like, if you're under 27, there was no initiation fee, and you paid, I can't remember if we paid part dues or full dues or whatever. So a group of friends and I joined, and it's an awesome course at that point. It had an awesome membership, really good tournaments, lots of fun. The cool thing about Hillcrest, if you live in Kansas City, is it's in Swell Park. So it's really secluded, but it's like 10 minutes from Midtown. So I live in Midtown, kind of near the Country Club Plaza, which is a, sort of a landmark here. And, you can shoot out this place where it's real private and fun, and you're not seeing a bunch of houses and traffic and things like that, but you're also 10 minutes from home. So that was always kind of cool. And then I wound up, kind of joining, Mission Hills Country Club, which is a little bit closer to my house, and Hillcrest kind of went through some things. The ownership changed, and then it kind of went semi-private. And, but then there's a family here in town, the Price family, that bought it, I think at about 16 or 17. And I had a relationship with them. I've known them for a long time. And as soon as they bought it, like, I started talking to them about, hey, is there anything we could do to work together on this? Or, could we get involved? Cause I've got, ideas, if we put money into it, and it never really worked out. And then, whatever it was, I guess now about 2 years ago, they kind of came to me and said, hey, we'd be interested in selling. Would you have an interest in buying? And so, was fortunate enough that it worked out. So
that's very cool.
But, the history of Hillcrest is really cool. I mean, in the 20s and 30s, it was absolutely the mob's hangout. So there's all sorts of like little stories around that. And, I think, as you guys have kind of discussed with your group, like we tore down the clubhouse. So the clubhouse was 25,000 square feet. It was huge. I called it a haunted mansion. It's literally what it looked like. And the basement was the creepiest place ever. And like literally, like the first time I walked down to the basement after we bought it, there literally was a stuffed rabbit sitting on like a chair down in the basement. I was like, wow, that's crazy. But no, I mean, getting off the mob thing, like there are a bunch of Fairbanks scales down there still from Prohibition era, weighing all the different kind of booze barrels. So
Wow.
it's got a really cool history. It's a beautiful part of Jackson County. It's the highest point in the county. We've got views of downtown, not that we've cleared up a bunch of the trees. So it's just, it's just got a really cool, rich history. It's a great location and unbelievable piece of property for us to work with.
Yeah, it's been fun, like digging into all the little historical artifacts that, we've obviously had some time, thinking about the course and seeing people in the community dig up stuff, old pictures, newspaper articles, all those things. It's very
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, pictures of like, Ben Hogan and Byron Nelson on the 18th green. And I mean, tons of really cool stuff.
It's so cool how much history, Hillcrest has, but also you personally have with the course. And, that kind of leads me into like wanting to get involved. What was your vision for the club? What is your vision for the club? Did you always kind of see it as a continuation of its past, or what you've experienced as a member there before? Or how do you kind of see that evolving over time?
Yeah, well, so, kind of our team on my side, and guys' names that you'll hear a bunch about are, Bill Jacoboyce and Corey Owen and Greg Cotton, and all of us have kind of been out there and know about it. And it's a Donald Ross course. So, you got to take care of that, right? I mean, that in and of itself, it's the only Ross in this region. I think there's a 9-hole Ross over in somewhere, Kansas, but, nothing kind of noteworthy. And, not only is it a Ross, but some of the things that Ross has said about it. And then, I mean, people like, Ray Floyd have said, hey, the first hole at Hillcrest is the hardest hole in golf I've ever played, which, just to give you a quick one on that. I mean, it's basically a 250-yard par 3 down the hill. Almost an auto double bogey for me, like when I was a member there, which was always frustrating. And so we've got rid of that hole. It's gone. It now is kind of part of the driving range on a go forward basis. But, I think we wanted to respect the bones that we have. And the cool thing is like we brought in, I don't know, maybe 8 different architects, and like architects from all around the country, renowned people. And we didn't have a single one say like, no, there's nothing here. Everybody's like, wow, there's something here for sure. And with the right attention to detail and, the right level of investment, like this can be a top 100, it could be a really special place. So we wanted to do that. And I mean, one of the motivations for that group that I mentioned is, Kansas City really is, I think, the only kind of NFL city that doesn't have sort of a PGA caliber golf course, honestly. I mean, it doesn't have a top 100. And, we've got Prairie Dunes and kind of Flint Hills, out in Kansas that are destination golf. But we don't in Kansas City. So it was, how can we take this special place and kind of take it to the next level? I mean, aspirationally, the way that I look at stuff like this, it's just like sporting. It was like, why can't we have the best fans in MLS in Kansas City? Why can't we have the best stadium? Why can't we have, the best team? So that's how we're looking at Hillcrest. Like, why can't we have all those things? And I think we've got all the tools to make it happen. So now let's make it happen. And, part of that is, how do we have the best membership in town? And I think, again, this relationship with Lynx is, a step in the right direction around achieving that.
Great. Yeah, you mentioned the property, and you mentioned some stuff about architecture. I would like to dig in a little bit on kind of the plan for that. So I was actually there in January and walked the course, and it's an unbelievable property. We mentioned this on the last, but it has great elevation without being difficult to walk. Like you said, it's very secluded. There's no houses on it, and it has Ross bones. We're partnering with Tripp Davis, who, if folks aren't familiar with his work, you can go into the clubhouse, Links Out Clubhouse, and you can see a ton about the new routing, a ton of like some of the geo maps and stuff about Tripp and where he's worked. I mean, he's a world-class architect. How did you land with him? You mentioned some conversations with other architects. What was it sort of special about Tripp that you felt was right to honor this golf course's history while also bringing it into the future that we all envision? And could you maybe just spend a little bit of time describing the renovation plan that we have in mind?
Sure. So set aside Tripp's resume, because, we brought a bunch of different people in that all have great resumes and have, half a dozen courses that are noteworthy. Tripp's just a great dude. He's a really down to earth guy, Oklahoma guy, went to University of Oklahoma. A quick funny story. So another member of our team is a guy, Doug Albers. He's a probably the best golfer in this area. And so Doug and I were meeting with him out at the course, and we're kind of standing behind the first tee, and Tripp just has this massive dip in, and we're talking to him, and he pulls the dip out, and he just goes like this and throws it behind him. And there's a Donald Ross like plaque right there, and the thing splats right on Donald Ross's face, like behind the first tee, which he was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." But he's just a great guy, and I mean, he's got a really good history of Ross courses, and knows kind of all the touches, greens that tilt, kind of back to front, and grass face bunkers, and he just understands a lot of the key ingredients, and we just liked him a lot. He's a great guy. He's been really fun to work with. And he's not arrogant at all. Like, I mean, I'm not saying we're making any real design decisions, but we've been out on property with him a bunch. And, he and Doug have talked through a lot of things, and I think he's taken Doug's advice in a number of different situations on things. And so I just think it's been a really good collaboration. And he's, been great to work with, and we like him. And, when we did talk to like some of his references and things like that, I mean, a bunch of the courses that he's done, he's still on the greens committee, and still is really actively involved. And so we thought that was cool, that people wanted to kind of continue the relationship, even though he's done. The course we're doing a major renovation. So we're flipping the nines. I mentioned with the elimination of number 1, we're also eliminating number 18 as well. Which again, that's something to probably talk about, which is, 1 was brutal, like I said, and 18 was super easy. And that was a Ross signature. That 18, he always wanted it to kind of be a be-back hole for you. So it was a par 5 kind of along the clubhouse. That was pretty simple. I mean, for a good golfer, pretty easy to make 4 there, to be honest. And we eliminated that, and 18 now is the old 9. It's still a gettable hole, but it's tougher. And when you come to Hillcrest, you'll see that they're literally, if you went straight out the front window of where the clubhouse is going to be, there's a spine that is kind of the primary hill of Hillcrest, and sort of to the north of that is the the back 9, and to the south of that now is the new front 9. But yeah, pretty major renovation. But within the kind of the footprint of the original course. So no additional land. We're not going out and creating any kind of like brand new holes. So there are components of old holes involved in every hole, but new tee boxes, new greens everywhere. We've taken out about 2,000 trees. We probably have another 500 to take out here once kind of the weather allows. And, there's all sorts of things you have to do around wildlife, you can't take trees down because it kills bats and all that kind of crazy stuff. So yeah, probably 2,500 trees will be out by the time it's all said and done. And so it'll be a very, what's cool is it's a forest all around it, and inside of it, it's going to be the trees that remain will basically be, aiming and kind of shaping trees, not just kind of the random trees that have grown up all over the place over, sort of the history of the course. And then softening some of it. I mean, again, another one of the things about Ross courses is you have to remember, like, when he was designing these and like what was available, right? It's not like you had backhoes and tractors. I mean, you had cattle and, ox and plows and things like that. So softening a bunch of the slopes, there were a couple holes that, the fairway was almost kind of like a roller coaster. So we're cleaning some of that stuff up and, changing some of the tilts and things, but no, I mean, I think it's going to be a really thoughtful design, and it's going to be a course that's going to be, very challenging, but not brutal, right? Playable and, as you kind of mentioned, walkable. We definitely have, kind of a caddy program in the works as well, which is not very prevalent in Kansas City at all. So hopefully we'll be a leader on that and be innovative and kind of work with the neighborhood around them as well. But that's really what we wanted this to be. It's just a really good, fun course, and an incredible hang, kind of in the clubhouse and just on property. That's really what we're looking for.
Yeah. And I mean, Tripp has obviously done extensive work at Donald Ross courses too, but I think you've mentioned in the past, so Tripp has a ton of connections there, but then there's been work with like the Donna Ross Society, and then there's like extensive old drawings, routings, photos of kind of the original, template of what the course was, right? To kind of work off, because that's always the tricky part in restoring an old course, right? Is like you want to keep the heritage, but the fact is, the game technology has evolved, in a million different ways since then. But at least to my understanding, I'd love to hear you tell us like you've kind of taken all those angles into account, or like Tripp has, the whole team has, to like try and find the right balance there, right? How you do that.
Yeah, I mean, we found so many old drawings, and it's pretty funny because Tripp actually did a project. He did a routing for Hillcrest like in 2004, and
No
we
way.
found we found that, and it was pretty funny because he looked at it and he's like, "I'm a lot better architect," because there are a lot of things of that he didn't love, but yeah, I mean, we've gone through reams and reams of information, and I mean, the amount of sort of raw data that we have there is pretty extensive and pretty incredible. And originally when we looked at it, we were working with Jackson County, who is basically our land neighbor all around us, the park, and we were talking about doing a deal with them to acquire another kind of 40 acres to push the course out into that area. And Tripp was like, "It's not going to be authentic if we do that. If we go create 3 new holes that we carve into the woods, they're going to look like 3 new holes that we carved into the woods." And he's like, "I want to work inside of the existing footprint." And we were nervous about that just from the standpoint of could we, because we definitely needed to modernize Hillcrest from a length perspective. It was, can't remember what it was, but I want to say it was like 63 or 6,400. And now, from the back tees, it's 7,100. It's going to be a challenge. And I mean, there's going to be some real tough holes. I mean, there's a couple par 3s that are 200 plus yards. One of them from the back tees is 260. So it's definitely going to be a challenge. The front 9's probably a little more gettable. The back 9 is tougher, and especially, kind of 15, 16, 17, 18. It's a tough finish. So, and it'll be a great finish if you're in a match that's tight, right? So it's, we like it a lot. We think it works really well. It's probably not, doesn't have the landmass where we'd ever be able to host a PGA Tour event or anything like that. But we've had the USGA out on property a bunch, and they're like, what events do you want? What we'd love to do a bunch of different things out here. So I think, even and look, it doesn't hurt that you guys helped get us in Golf Digest last week, right? So I mean, the notoriety around this course when it's literally just barely under construction is pretty good. And I think we've got a pretty good feeling about where it's going to go.
Yeah, we've already had some community members coming up with ideas for prizes for a hole-in-one on that to a 60-yard par 3. So, we're open to suggestions on that. We'll keep exploring it. It's an exciting project, right? This is really cool. As you probably know, Chris, the team, our community have sourced and looked for hundreds of courses to get us to this point. We've been looking all over the golf world, but I want to ask a little bit now about you and Linksdow. How did you first hear about us? What interests you about kind of working together in Hillcrest more broadly, and what opportunities do you kind of see about this relationship with Linksdow?
I'm not embarrassed to say that I found out about Linksdow through a Google search. I just messing around, just thinking through. So my background, I'm involved in private equity. And so, and we invest in a bunch of different companies all over the place. So just when I was thinking about Hillcrest, I was like, okay, who are kind of smart partners or investors that I could bring to bear in what we're doing? And that's how I initially stumbled upon Links. And Chris, I think I reached out to you first, maybe.
Yeah,
right?
I think it was. Yeah, I remember the first phone call.
I actually,
maybe-
I have the pre-story to that. You reached out to us on our support intercom channel. And so
That's right.
I'm not taking credit for the beginning of that relationship, but I remember sending it to Chris and being like, this seems really interesting. He's like, yeah, let's talk. So that was the very beginning of our contact.
So never think that sort of like your info page on a website is a waste of time.
Right.
But yeah, that's kind of how, kicked off, and then had the opportunity to meet, Chris and Jim, and again, similar to Tripp, just great guys, right? That I was like, the these guys, their personalities fit with what we're doing. Kind of the aspirations around, links and, the relationship that you want to have with your members and the sorts of experiences that you want to provide sort of, go hand in glove with sort of what we're thinking. So it all came together. It probably didn't come together as quickly as the guys would have hoped. But yeah, no, I'm really excited about it. And again, like I said, it's completely kind of innovative and unique and new. And I think that fits us really well.
Yeah. Never happens as quickly as you want, but that just is what it is.
Right.
So maybe on that point, or continue on that point, what we've had a lot of questions about this, and I think one of the things that we have noted when we talked with you is it seems like your vision for kind of what you want to build, our vision for what we want to build, or what we hear our community members what they want to build, what kind of course they want to be involved in, what kind of environment they want to be involved in, seems very aligned. But I'm curious to hear from your mouth, from your perspective, like what kind of vibe do you envision for Hillcrest? How would you say it will exist versus other clubs, like in the city or just across the country? I'm sure you all have talked about it a lot over the years, and certainly we've kind of heard you talk about it a bit and given our thoughts too. But how would you frame that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think one of the things that in the Kansas City market that's going to be very different about it is that it's a golf club. It's not a country club. No pools, no banquet rooms, no no swim champs, none of that sort of stuff, right? It's just golf. And then it's golf with just an unbelievable hang. And that that hang is just as important to us as the golf piece is. And, so we're going to try to implement a bunch of things that you're now seeing at, kind of destination golf all over the country, comfort stations and just different things like that kind of amplify the experience. Kind of a interesting example is we do have the course designed. We've got, we're laying out fiber all over the course. So I'll have the capability to have, speakers on tee boxes and music all over the course when and if we want for those kind of events. We've got a great relationship with Starlight Theater, which is just around the corner from us, which is managed by Live Nation. Obviously kind of the largest concert promoter. We're already talking to them about how can we do some events with Live Nation, particularly around the World Cup situation, which I think will be cool. We do have a number of investor members that are, kind of the who's who of Kansas City, professional athletes. You can imagine who that might be. We'll be able to be kind of more public about that here relatively soon, but, on both the football, baseball, and sort of college basketball scene, we've got, sort of all the people that you'd want to have involved here in Kansas City. So it's just, I think it's going to be a unique place in the fact that it's going to be very golf centric. And I think it's going to be a place that our members will like to come hang out, even if they're not playing golf. Because I think we're going to have, high-end food and beverage. We're working with a guy by the name of Colby Garrels here in Kansas City, who's a James Beard award-winning chef, has restaurants here in town called Blue Stem, which was a great place forever. Rye, which is another great spot. And Colby's doing sort of all the food service design, all the menu design. And so like that matters to us. Like, my background, my family is very big in food and beverage and restaurants and things. And so like the culinary aspect of Hillcrest matters to me. The golf, the hang, all those things. I just think it's going to be a place that'll be unique. I wouldn't say that it's probably going to be real family centric. I mean, that's not to say that we're going to discourage families from being out here. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I think this is going to be more of a friends course. It's going to be you with your friends and your member friends and
that kind of goes with it not being the like full tennis kind of country club, right? It's kind of goes hand in hand.
I mean, we've had a bunch of people ask us, are you going to put in pickleball courts? No, we're not. That's a huge thing here in Kansas City these days. It's going to be golf. Yeah. And, the crazy thing too, which is just an attribute, but it matters here. Like, we're putting in an unbelievably great driving range. So it'll be a 400 yard double-sided driving range, with a bunch of, kind of training aspects. And we don't have that in Kansas City. I mean, it's crazy at most of the really high-end clubs, the driving range is sort of an afterthought. And that won't be the case at Hillcrest. I mean, it'll be a great place to practice if you want to practice.
If Chris keeps swing training, you might have to extend that to 500 yards. August. I think they'll be maxing that out pretty soon.
Yeah, right.
Rob, like, can you maybe walk us through like a day in the life? Like, it's all done, it's opened up, it's a beautiful afternoon, get some friends out on the course. Like, kind of walk us through what you think like the perfect day would look like. You talked about hospitality, you talked about food, you talked about a whole number of things. Just kind of walk us through what you imagine a perfect, ideal day would be at Hillcrest.
Yeah, well, I mean, the other thing about Hillcrest too is, we're intentionally going to keep sort of the local membership in particular small, right? 'Cause, I mean, one of the issues, honestly, we have in Kansas City right now to all of the top clubs is, huge waiting list to get in. And ever since COVID, it's kind of one of those, if you want to book a tee time, you're going online 7 days before you want to play and you're racing against everybody else to try to get spots. And that's not going to be an issue at Hillcrest. I mean, we're not going to have tee times, first of all. I mean, it's basically going to be like show up and we're going to have a really high end sort of locker room attendant function. That's well coordinated with the pro and the caddies and things. And, we'll get you off when it makes sense. So, and then, like I said, I mean, we're just going to try to have sort of amenities all around the course, from, kind of a concierge-like environment, where you can feel good about, your arrival sequence, your departure sequence. If we need to help get you home, if you had a few too many cocktails on the course, we're going to have kind of transportation services available. We have a really wonderful relationship with both the police and fire department, which are just down the street from us, which I think will be helpful for our membership over time. So yeah, I just see it as a spot where there's going to be really good golf going on. A lot of people having fun, and really in an environment where, I mean, candidly, like the rules of our place are going to be, don't be an asshole, right? I mean, that's really fundamentally, that's the bottom line. Just don't be an asshole, and you're good. We're not going to be rigid about, the length of your socks or collar types or that sort of thing. That's not going to be it. It's going to be just don't be an asshole, have a good time, and contribute to it being a great place. So yeah, I mean, I just think we're going to try to be very, very serious about attention and detail, right? And have a bunch of those little touches that make experiences better, and that's what we try to do at sporting a lot. I mean, it's interesting, and sometimes it comes off as a bit cheesy, but one of my partners at sporting is a guy by the name of Cliff Illig, who founded Sterner, which is now Oracle, and he was always a big Disney disciple. Which was, you create kind of end-to-end experiences, you sweat the details, you push people out front, and you try to sprinkle in some magic moments. And so, like, I take that to heart. Like, that's, there are going to be little things I think about Hillcrest that, if you're flying home back to wherever, New York or Miami or wherever, you're like, gosh, that locker room attendant did this, and that was really incredible. It's some of that sort of stuff that I think we want to be, real definitional around what Hillcrest is.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that certainly shone through when we kind of first met you guys and started talking about potentially working together. But both like kind of the experience component, but then also, if I'm kind of reading into it, there's like there's a little bit of not being the typical golf country club, right? Which has, there's some good connotation with that, but there's also many negative ones, kind of stuffy atmosphere and, not like the type of atmosphere that leads to like the good hang or, just the place you want to spend time at, right? Necessarily. And, kind of like skewing younger on membership and, being a little more innovative in your thinking, music on the course, not being super strict about dress code, all those things like, certainly like, when we started talking, and we think about alignment with the Lynx membership, obviously there's a lot of that shines through as well, right? Skewing younger, obviously thinking more innovative or, doing more innovative things, kind of in their spare time. So that's awesome. Really awesome to hear.
Cool. Well, Cooper, Chris, any other questions you got for Rob before we wrap up here?
Just want to say thanks, Rob, for taking the time. Really loved hearing a lot about your experiences. Love the stories about sporting and listening to member feedback, supporting your fans and members who support you. I think that really aligns with our philosophy here, and just, excited to get into it with you, and get this vote passed.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I hope your membership, is real active around everybody votes. And look, I mean, I think this is going to be a great thing. And I mean, the thing Chris knows, and maybe it's not exactly the right time to talk about it, but our aspirations as a company is that we're going to go try to nail the Hillcrest thing here, but go work on a bunch of other golf projects around the country and frankly around the world. So, as things go well here, hopefully that translates into other places and other opportunities. And, I think we'll be able to be much more public about that here over the course of the next couple of months. But, for us, it doesn't stop here at Hillcrest. This has got to square one and then, keep building. And hopefully we can do that collaboratively with, links and with your membership.
Yeah, we've we're in a similar boat. Like, we want to nail Hillcrest. That's opportunity number one. But yeah, we've always kind of within our membership talked about like building out the network of courses. We have members, not just across the country, but across the globe. Obviously, we already have a course in Scotland. So like, the prospect of continuing on that trajectory, continuing to deliver awesome golf experiences all over the place. Really exciting. Don't put the cart before the horse of nail Hillcrest first, but really excited about the future. So it's awesome talking with you, Rob. Thanks again for taking the time. I think our members will love hearing a little more context, the history, kind of how you think about things. And I think it's really valuable. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Pleasure. Happy to do.
Cool. Well, that takes care of today's episode. Obviously, as Chris said, hopefully you learned a lot about Robb, learned a lot about Hillcrest, and hopefully you left even more excited than you already were before you started watching it. So if you have any thoughts, questions, jump into Discord, share your feedback. Obviously, right now there's a ton of active conversation as we lead up to the vote. It's a very exciting place to be, and part of the beauty of Links DAO is participating in this process. So don't miss out the chance to be able to debate and have really constructive conversations about this. It's really, really fun. I know Cooper's dialed in and locked in, and I know Chris is as well. And yeah, just to echo what Chris said, Robb, huge thanks for taking the time today. I know you're busy, so thanks for jumping in. Thanks for sharing and spending some time talking with us today. Cooper, Chris, thanks as always. Appreciate you taking the time as well. And most importantly, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks for tuning in. We can't wait to bring this sort of next chapter of Link's life together. So stay engaged, stay involved, and we'll see you out there. See y'all next time.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.